Hi, I'm Laura Meyer, founder and CEO of Envision Horizons. And today, our episode of On the Horizons is with the amazing Amanda Aldinger. Amanda, it's so great to have you.
Thank you, Laura. It's really good to be here.
And just so everyone knows Amanda's background, she is the founder and CEO of Antonym, a luxury brand voice strategy studio. Wow. That offers a 360 suite of copywriting services and messaging strategy. A former editor at MAC Cosmetics and trained journalist, she brings a unique blend of editorial expertise and strategic brand thinking to help premium companies craft authentic, conversion-driven messaging. Her work spans diverse industries from beauty, as well as even global companies like PepsiCo. So it's amazing to have you, and I can't wait to get into both the big brand building strategies as well as very tactical pieces. But before we get into the meat of the interview, I want to play a little game with you.
Perfect. Let's do it.
As a professional copywriter, I want to play tagline trivia. So don't be shy. It's okay if you don't get it right. This is all for fun. So we're going to start easy and progress a little bit harder. So the first one, because you're worth it.
That one is CoverGirl. No.
And I can give you multiple choice.
Let's give me multiple choice.
Okay. Is it A, Estee Lauder, B, L'Oreal, or C, Maybelline?
L'Oreal.
Yes.
Okay, there.
You never worked at L'Oreal?
No.
Okay.
Have
so
never worked with L'Oreal.
clinical formulations with integrity.
Ooh. I would say that
I can give you multiple choice.
let's do the multiple choice because I'm going to call out this tagline as not being very ownable.
Okay. There we go.
So,
Okay. The Ordinary, the Inky List, or Paula's Choice.
Let's say Paula's Choice.
Correct?
Great.
Ding, ding, ding. Beauty for all.
Okay, so if anyone needs tagline help, Antonym is really great at tagline development. Let's go for the multiple choice.
Okay. Glossier,
Uh-huh.
Fenty Beauty, Rare Beauty.
This is one where it could be all of them based on their positionings. I'm going to say Glossier. No. Is it Fenty?
It's Fenty.
It's Fenty.
Change Destiny.
All right. Okay, what are my options?
Option A is La Mer.
Okay.
Tatcha. Or Skin 2.
I'm going to say Skin 2.
Correct.
Okay.
So let's get into it.
Yes.
That was fun. Thank you for participating.
Of course.
We always like to switch things up a little bit here. So can you give me a little bit more background on what Antonym Studio does and the type of brands and work that you do?
Yeah, absolutely. I started the company about 6 years ago after working as the editorial director for MAC for a long time. So when I left, I started working with a lot of different clients. And the thing that kept coming up the most was that brands were struggling with voice. The industry was getting very saturated. It was harder to stand out. And there was this evolving understanding that being very ownable and distinct in how you spoke was as critical to a brand's equity and positioning as your visual design or your product category. So Antonym focuses solely on brand messaging, and we cover that from a 360-degree angle. So everything from your core strategy, taglines, brand name, your positioning, brand reasons to believe, to developing your voice, and then translating all of that through any type of messaging that you would need across every type of platform that a brand needs to communicate on. We're very, very high touch, and we also are very attuned to the nuances of voice. So spiking out very ownable, hooky, sparky voices and keeping them very consistent is one of our real specialties and passions.
And what is one of your favorite one-liners you've developed for a client?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say One of our favorite ways of working with clients, and I'm going to go broad first to get specific, is when we get to be very conceptual for campaigns and new product launches. And so part of that work is developing really great hooky one-liners to thread through all of the different assets. I think probably one of our recent favorite brands to do this with was Sacred. They launched an edge drop product last year, and it was so fun building that messaging framework for them and getting able to play with a word like edge, which has so many different connotations, edginess, but then
Mhm.
also the part of the hairline that the product was addressing. And just the entire campaign was really grounded in all of this really fun wordplay. Anytime that we get to build a world based on a concept, a fun word, something a bit idiosyncratic is really, really, really where the creative work is for us.
Amazing. So let's talk about beauty as an industry, right?
Mhm.
I think it's fair to say almost every subcategory at this point is a crowded market.
Mhm.
The industry has changed. It's not just the big holding companies. Private equity really moved into the industry, giving financial support for small to mid-sized brands to be more aggressive. So, when you're helping a brand craft a story,
Mhm.
how do you help them stand out in a crowded market?
Yeah, it's become one of the biggest challenges of the work these days. I'm to the point where we really struggle to work with a brand who hasn't done some of that work on their own. We've actually had clients come to us for positioning work. And when we've asked fundamental questions like, what do you think makes you different? Or what are you actually offering that's very different from your competitors? We've had some brands not able to answer that question. So the work has to begin there.
Mhm.
From our perspective, we are very adamant about not making that up, not pretending like something is something that it's not. And I'm going to pull out some examples of what we've been doing with some of our legacy clients who have found themselves having at their origins come into the market with an idea and a product line that was very innovative and very different. And then watching younger, more agile brands be able to come in and snatch up that share and move a lot faster. There's a lot of language at this point that is not meaning anything to consumers. Words like clean and clinically proven. I think when we were looking at those taglines, and when you have one tagline that could apply to 4 different brands, that's part of the problem.
Yeah.
How is anybody supposed to understand? So we have to go back to what is really true, not just from a formulation perspective, but from an emotional perspective about why the brand started. And then also look at what details about your products or your story have helped you retain clients over the years. What are the things that people like about you over a decade? And once we start to pull out those details, what are ownable aspects about your formulations? What does your audience really love about you and inspires them to return over and over again? What is that emotional need? We have to go back to the original why. And why that's become more important now more than ever is that younger generations, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, but especially Gen Z, are very connected to the emotional experience that they're having with a brand and how that is supporting their personal well-being.
Mm.
So I think a lot of what's happened is that this emphasis on claims and facts and all of the rote details have compromised a lot of the aspirational and emotional qualities of a brand that people are looking for, and that the best and most successful exercise that we've found is actually returning to those origins of a brand and bringing them back into the storytelling, because it's when those elements were leached out, it's at that point that it was harder to stand out, which makes sense.
Yeah. What about the rise and fall of certain brands? Do you think it's because they lose vision? So you mentioned Gen Alpha, that makes me think of Drunk Elephant,
Mhm.
right? And for me, that always felt like such a a mismatch when you think about the origin of Drunk Elephant. It was a mom who started experimenting with formulations, and when that came out, that was more of a millennial brand.
Mhm.
It, like, skipped a generation and went straight to Gen Alpha. How can brands protect themselves in the moment that ride up is exciting, but the crash is twice as painful? If you were advising that brand, would you tell them to go back to the origins, to try and shift their positioning to Gen Alpha and try and remain relevant? How do you solve for some of those issues?
Yeah, it's a great question and something that I think we're seeing so much, as you've pointed out, because these younger generations have a lot more spending power than I think typically the youngest generations do at other points in
Mhm.
time. So I think the biggest mistake that a brand can make, and we're seeing this a lot, is trying to capture every bit of generational shifts or trends that they see. And in that, diluting why they actually started in the first place and what makes them very different. This can happen a couple ways. Like as the brand has grown, maybe naturally their target audience is segmenting a bit. We worked with one brand a few years ago who found that based on the channels where the brand was selling, there was one channel that drew out a more conservative audience politically,
Mm.
and the more kind of social oriented channels where they were connecting more with the ethos of the brand and an audience that shared their values. But there were a lot of similarities between what these audiences wanted. And so to try to ignore one or assume that they're so different that they can't be united would have been a really big mistake. So in that case, we sat down, we looked at the different channels, we looked at the different demographics, and we built out list of qualities that everybody shared.
Mhm.
Why all of these disparate people were coming to the same place. And a lot of this was cross-generational too. And then we used that to revise their positioning, which we then built into a new tone of voice as well. And all of it was based on what audiences shared. But then knowing that we had these different platforms where the communication style is actually quite different, we took those core, I guess, tenets of the brand, those pillars. And then when it came time to message on the different platforms, that's where we would bring in those nuances that would speak to the differences in lifestyle. I'm not getting political in this case,
Mhm.
but if you're speaking to somebody who's Gen X or in the boomer generation, what they want in a lifestyle is different than Gen Z or Alpha, but maybe what they're looking for and how something makes them feel is the same. And so how can you place that product or the equity of the brand into the elements of lifestyle that where they seek desire, where they're trying to feel good, but make them see it in their own life?
Mm.
I think that's what's become really important in terms of bringing that emotionality back into a brand is how can I look at this piece of advertising or this copy or this email and immediately see how this works in my life? So nuancing that across your different platforms allows you to stay true to who you are, but then connect with them in the moment that they're interacting with you, which is going to differ based on social, based on QVC, based on Amazon, based on an in-store experience.
Yeah, and so you really help brands on what I would call more of like the subjective journey
Mhm.
of marketing,
Yes.
but you also still have to tie it back to
Mhm.
objective measurables.
Mhm.
So maybe you can share a story or a case study in how you've been able to do that and how you were able to deliver measurable results with really strong storytelling.
Mhm. That's a great question. Our relationship with the marketing team of any brand, of any client is so, so, so important. We've found that the most successful storytelling efforts come when we join hands with marketing right away. Typically, the way that our work is briefed in is from the marketing team, from the product team. We get all of the information about, and I'm going to speak about a new product launch. We get all of those details the details about the formulation, the details about the market and where they want to position the product. And our job is to take all of that information and to create a creative story around that, a world around it that contains all of those details, but packages them in a way that would hook somebody in and very much connects to desire. So rather than all of these being siloed experiences, something that we've started to do is to work with marketing to rewrite that brief and co-craft that brief so that the brief is actually bringing in the world of the brand, so that when everybody is learning about this product, they're not just learning about the details, they're starting to experience it within the lifestyle component, within the language that the brand uses and the tonality. That's something that helps get the internal team aligned and helping center them into the emotional world. And that's something we care very, very much about, is what is the emotional landscape in which this product is living in. And then from there, we are absolutely adamant about creating some sort of a creative concept around it. And that doesn't mean writing the copy in a flowery or attractive way, but building a world that centers on a hook, something that takes what the product does and connects it to an individual sense of desire, something that you want for your world, how this really makes you feel better or move through the world in a happier, more empowered way. When I was at Mac, we would do this in really conceptual ways, like themed around very irrelevant moments, irrelevant to beauty, a movie theater or a grocery store or the locker room of a gym. Brands aren't doing that as much anymore, but maybe for something like Origins that we worked on recently, which had this really, really incredible ingredient related to apples. They had worked with an apple that was known for the longevity of its freshness and then extracted stem cells from that and put it into this product. And it was this like youth boosting, youth longevity story. So for that, we would take the qualities of the apple, working with the ingredient and building this world that's connecting this natural ingredient to the experience that you want to have, and then getting very conceptual visually about it, which the design team would do. That story, that hook that's not related to the product is very, very, very important. Mm-hmm. And that's something that we work with on every single client, so that when they're putting something out into the world, there is an emotional landscape and an emotional territory that that product is playing in, as well as what it's doing innovatively.
So when you think of it from the technical side, though, like let's go back to that ordinary example of the youthful apple, we'll call it. There's no search demand for that ingredient. There isn't a lot of SEO advantage to leaning into that. So how do you find that balance? Because anti-aging is broad reaching. It's very hard to compete on that. So when you're crafting copy that is to support SEO initiatives, how do you marry the two?
Yeah, you have to have both. 100%. What we do is we build out messaging maps for all of our clients. So once we've landed the creative concept, we then pull out all of the different territories of information that we would want to speak about, both as it relates to the uniqueness of the product, but then all the places we know we have to speak about it. A product page, an email, social, the website. We get all of the details, all of the very specific details, like the SEO keywords, the search terms, where we know what territories competitively we know this product is playing in. And we marry the two. And that's very, very specific. Often kind of our formula is beginning and ending with some sort of a creative hook. And then everything in the middle is very, very specific and detail oriented. You have to know what it does and you have to get it to people. If it's all romance, it's not going to work. This is something that luxury is dealing with as an industry, being required to be a bit more specific than they're used to. because that's a world that always played in kind of the ethereal and the
Mhm.
mystique. And they got to really coast on that for a very long time without having to get super, super specific about details. And there's this feeling that being very detail oriented is mass or boring. But that's where the story helps ground those very specific details in something compelling, because you're drawn into it via the story, you learn about it, and then you're kind of held on your way out with a callback to that story that pulled you in.
And you write copy for Amazon SEO
Hmm.
specifically.
Yes.
What do you do in a situation where keyword stuffing is very
Hmm.
common on Amazon, especially keyword stuffing in the title,
Hmm.
but the title is the best copy to educate the customer? How do you marry the two there?
Yeah, the most important thing for us is always to work first with the core brand copy. We're going to translate this for Amazon. We're not going to start over fresh and strip out all of the magic, because that's not going to work. So we know when we're translating a brand's product category into their Amazon copy, we're working with.
I like that you use the term translating because Amazon is its own language sometimes.
It is. It absolutely
Yeah.
is. You're not starting over. You're not doing something completely new, but you're taking something that exists and you're working it into a language that meets the landscape of Amazon. And that's very much how we think of it. I'm thinking of a client that we're doing this work for right now, and we start with all of the core brand copy. And we know from that things that we're going to retain: the product hook, a few of the ownable phrases that we've developed for the brand that we know are part of the product's differentiation, both within the brand portfolio and in the market portfolio, the key claims that make it very innovative in its category, and any sort of compelling ways for how to use it within the rest of the product line. All of those things have to stay, because that is what makes it unique to that brand. From there, we then look, what are the keywords we have? How do we know we need to talk about this because of how people are searching for this? And we do a few things. One, we may have to make some revisions for consistencies. So sometimes keywords or the way that people search for a product is maybe not exactly how the brand has always talked about a product. So we have to do a full sweep and kind of make those adjustments so it's very consistent, so that you're not seeing something spelled one way here and then it's spelled a different way somewhere else, which is something that's happening a lot. And then we'll just go through and, like weaving a tapestry, we thread them in. And we always highlight everything so that as writers and as a team, we're really clear on where these keywords are falling in the document, so that when we're rereading the story, we're making sure that we're not stuffing things and that we're creating a natural flow of keywords. So we're not just using the same one over and over and over and over again, but we're bringing in enough variance so that your experience when you're reading it is not one of, I just feel like I'm reading a ton of keywords, but functionally it's doing the job it's supposed to do for the platform.
How are you also thinking about more natural language as it relates to optimizing for AI and making sure the copy is aligning with
Mhm.
what the brand's unique voice and messaging is to maybe the more casual and relaxed natural language that AI is really pulling from?
I would say one of the biggest trends in the nearly 15 years that I've been doing this, one of the biggest tonal shifts that I've seen that is hitting across the board is this move into more conversational, human-centered language. And it's really fascinating to me and something that we're working on across every client, because it's hitting from our most high tier luxury clients to our mass clients. This conversational, casual energy has become important across every part of the category.
Is that a cultural shift, or do you think it's also to support AI?
I think a lot of it is a cultural
Yeah.
shift. It started as a cultural shift, and now it's
Dual benefit.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
But I would say it started as a cultural shift, because a lot of the platforms where people are experiencing brands are culturally very conversational, very casual, that sort of very polished experience, which feels a bit more stiff and not real, is just not relating to people in the same way. We have been working really hard with our clients to adjust their voice guidelines to show, no matter what their tonality is, how to bring in a little bit more of a feeling like this is how a human speaks. As one of our internal tests, we'll read through everything, often as a group, before we send it to a client. Is this how somebody would say it? Can you hear somebody saying this? If you were describing this product to your friend. And that test actually works across really luxury, masstige, everything, because everybody's going to be talking to their friend about something that they love. You're going to always be a little clunkier and serious when you're bringing in those product specificities. But then how can you make it sound, I guess, not so serious? And as a writer, it's really fun because it's a bit more relaxed. One thing I'm always telling our writers is shake it up. Like, imagine if your copy was like your friend and you're just trying to get them to like, and you just shake it up a little bit, like shake your shoulders off, loosen it up.
Yeah. I always call it the mom test. That if my mom wouldn't know what I'm talking about, it's probably too serious.
That's a great test.
I see that a lot in B2B marketing, right? You go to some new AI startup's landing page and it is just buzzword after buzzword. And I still don't know what the software does.
Yes. Yes.
And it's very easy to have the same thing in any consumer product good as well.
It's true. That's why I think a lot of these phrases that brands have built their identities on, like being science-backed and clinically proven and clean, they don't mean anything to anybody anymore. And if 17 skincare brands are saying that their moisturizer is clinically proven,
there's no competitive advantage.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. It's time for some hot takes.
All right. Let's do it.
AI is disruptive for all industries, but especially your work. And what's your perspective on AI and its impact on brand voice and brand consistency? You know, can it really learn it, or is it going to feel too auto-generated?
I'm going to start by saying we're doing a lot of work with this with all of our clients in various capacities. And I will say, and this isn't just because I'm a writer and I'm trying to save my job, none of us have found that it is a replacement for what we do, and that it is particularly a challenge when it comes to voice and ownable voice. It's picking up product details very well. It's picking up high-level brand points of view when we'll train AI on a brand voice or on brand positioning, what makes a product different. All of that high-level information, it's landing. But then when it comes time to translate it into something really conceptual or different or nuanced, it just doesn't hit. It tends to lean on things that are available on the internet, which are slightly more cliche. Its wordplay is pretty cringy. So we are finding that the best way to use it, and we're very lucky that our clients agree. This isn't even a hard sell. Our clients are very much wanting to be leaders in this technology and are embracing it early on. And they're bringing writers in not to cannibalize us, but to understand how we can use this to give writers more time to be creative is actually the strategy that we're finding. The way that we're using it is on more kind of templated sort of work, things like PDPs and product dossiers, anything that doesn't need that conceptual hook in the same way, and training it so that it can get those details down and organize things really well, which I think is something that AI is great for doing, taking a lot of information, organizing it, but then taking that extra time back for ourselves to be working on more strategic conceptual work, which we have not found it able to do in a way that is advantageous or truly effective for a brand.
So it can help us scale,
Yeah.
but not being original.
No,
Yeah.
no.
I would agree with that.
And that's important. And that's why I'm so proud of our clients and who we work with, and have not felt any fear about this at all. I mean, if your goal is to scale without being original, then that's fine. But I think, as we've
But then you're
talked about,
competing on price.
yeah,
That's more like mass market strategy.
yeah. And we've seen it doesn't really,
It's still hard.
yeah.
An interesting theory that's out there right now. This is not my original thought, but it is something I've reflected on, which is that AI is actually going to make the hard skills, the technical skills, obsolete. And that it's actually these soft skills and understanding the human emotion as the new high value skill
Hmm.
sets, the EQ, etc. Maybe even for marketers or those earlier in their career, how can they build those muscles? Because a lot of that comes over time and being social, which is a whole other issue in culture right now. How can you build some of those creative muscles, soft skill muscles, so that you're not replaceable by AI?
One thing that we do every week with my team that we love, it's our favorite thing, and we call it a creative share. It's not an innovative name, but everyone brings in something that they have experienced creatively that week. And it really spans. One of our favorites is our writer, Mary, who brought in a story about eating hot wings. So it really can be anything.
I
And
think that's another podcast.
yeah, yes, I would love to. We'll get Mary on for that.
Okay.
And we share about the experience and then how it affected us creatively and how it helped give us a different perspective on doing the work. The whole purpose of that exercise is that for us writers, it's the last thing that you do, but writing comes from having ideas. And ideas come from having experiences, and experiences require you to be out in the world. I think that the best thing that anybody can be doing is making room for both. One of my favorite exercises, going back to the AI explicitly as an example, is one of the copy teams for the brands that we work with. We meet once a week just as the writers to talk about how things are feeling, work through different concepts, brainstorms. And recently we've been doing workshops about AI. There are some on the team who are not as excited about exploring it, others on the team who are really, really good at it.
Mm.
And we found that having that conversational space to talk about it, to have the ones who are really exploring it show us what they're doing and how they're using it, bringing that human element into the experience of working with AI made us all feel 1,000 times better. It's not only educational, but it's connecting us more as a team. I think for any sort of team leaders or anyone on a team, part of the responsibility is, how do you make sure that people are still connecting as humans individually? If everything is remote, getting people out, doing things, because that is the piece that at the end of the day is what all of our consumers are really interested in, is how does this make my human experience feel better and happier and easier?
Enjoyable, connected,
Yeah.
purpose
Yeah.
driven. Yeah. Well, Amanda, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for your insight and your wisdom. I'm feeling very inspired and I want to go do more creative exercises personally. So, thank you so much for joining On the Horizons today.
Thank you. And thank you for having me. It's really been an honor.